surprised and even stunned by her comments yesterday that the American intelligence agencies routinely lied to the Congress. I know it's false. I know that it demeans every person who's working to defend this country. And I noticed that today the Director of Central Intelligence himself, a former Democrat from California, put out a statement to the CIA employees saying that the CIA does not misinform the Congress.
But was she talking about one particular incident, September of '02?
She went on to say they routinely do this. I mean, she just went overboard. She was in a press conference defending herself, and she both alleged that they were not telling the truth, and then she went on to say they routinely don't tell the truth.
Would it not be wise at this point, because there's a lot of he said, she said on Capitol Hill, a lot of finger-pointing now between the Democrats and Republicans, would it not be wise to release all the documents? Even former Vice President Cheney wants documents released, the CIA wants some documents released, Speaker Pelosi did, so that at least we can find out who said what and when and find out who was deceived or who's not deceived.
Look, I think they're going to have to release the documents. I suspect they're going to have to investigate in a formal way, which means putting her under oath.
And others?
And others. But you had 8 people in the meeting, and I think that the recollections of everybody but Speaker Pelosi are very different from hers.
I imagine, have you ever been to any of these meetings?
Yes.
Do people take contemporaneous notes?
No, because it's all secret. I mean, so you wouldn't walk out of the room with a note that you had taken. Now, the professional staff could. So you might well have notes taken by the House Intelligence Committee staff or notes taken by the Central Intelligence Agency. But no member of Congress would ever walk out of a room like that with notes.
Would there be notes to perhaps, would it be routine to write down notes after the meeting by anybody, either it's Congress or the CIA representative?
Not by the staff, because the Intelligence Committee offices, which are at the very center of the Capitol up on the 4th floor, are secure. And so you can keep notes there that are secret. But these meetings have some of the most secret operational activities in the United States. And so you're really very careful about not going off capriciously and carrying any of this information anywhere else.
Well, it's sort of interesting because one of the pieces of information that Speaker Pelosi has said is that Congressman Harman in February, I think, of '03, sent a letter off objecting to some of the interrogation techniques. Those two aren't big friends of each other, are they?
No.
To put it bluntly.
Well, and that's why it seems to me that the Speaker's now gotten herself totally wrapped up in her own story, because she initially didn't know, then she sort of knew, then she knew that it was legal but they weren't doing it. Now she's saying she didn't learn they were doing it until 2003. That's not the real point. The real point is there was a long period when the United States was very frightened about the danger of another attack. We'd lost, 3,100 Americans, more than at Pearl Harbor. We had had an attack with anthrax that we didn't understand. We were genuinely worried about the possibility of a nuclear or other mass attack. And I think in that period, Democrats were very willing to say, do it. Do whatever you need to do. Don't tell me the details, just do it.
What I think is sort of bizarre almost, though, is that where we've now arrived is this, is that the important issue is the waterboarding and other issues, and there's a controversy about whether we should have ever revealed that, because it empowers our enemies to say, look, see what they do. That's a bad thing, but that's out. Right. That's out. And but it's sort of blown up into this political dispute where the question is who's telling the truth, and we've gotten sort of away from the techniques of how we should go about protecting our country, whether you're for it or against it.
Look, there are 2 things going on. All right. One is, I think we ought to have a national debate. The President of the United States learns that somebody may have a nuclear weapon and may set it off in New York City tomorrow morning. Well, how hard do you want us to push them?
I think we want the answer, but if you talk to Senator McCain, torture doesn't work. Vice President Cheney says, oh, yes, it does, and it has, and he can't get the documents.
Look, Director Tenet said unequivocally that these interrogations yielded more information than half of the CIA and the National Security Agency combined.
And I accept that, but this is the same director of the CIA who, during his watch, 9/11 happened.
That's right.
And it's during his watch, we had India and Pakistan doing testing on nuclear weapons. I mean, an awful lot happened on this man's watch. So I'm not I want the document. I want to see documents.
Look, I think Cheney is right to ask for the documents. And I think given this administration's capricious willingness to release things, it's interesting that the only things they won't release are the things that showed how America was defended. Now, the challenge you have, I think, is that, forget Tenet for a second, every director of Central Intelligence in the last 10 years has said this was important, it mattered, and you have today, as I said, Leon Panetta, who is a Democrat from California, the director of Central Intelligence, saying that they did not lie, they do not lie, that this is all politics. Now, I thought that was a pretty direct response to Speaker Pelosi.
Vice President Cheney has, and I'm paraphrasing, which I don't like to do, especially on such an important topic, but he has basically said that President Obama is putting our country at risk.
I believe that.
You believe that? I was going to ask you, do you believe that?
I believe the loss of morale and the loss of confidence in our intelligence community, knowing that even if you've had a legal opinion rendered officially by the government, you've been told this is a lawful order, you are doing the right thing, you could still be put at risk. You could still be humiliated. This idea, why don't we release pictures? All right, so let's release pictures. Are those Americans in the pictures? Are those Americans identifiable?
Well, we've already done it. That's the point. We've already done it. I mean, what different? It looks like we're hiding something at this point. Once having released it.
But here's the difference. If they start releasing pictures and you can identify individuals, those individuals may be subject to terrorists killing them. In the 1970s...
You mean of the Americans?
Of the Americans.
No, of the Americans, not the ones who are the subjects of the... Okay.
In the 1970s, we went through a cycle where the left was rabidly anti-American and began outing American CIA agents, and we had CIA agents killed because they were identified. And I think you've got to be very... This is a real war. There are people out there who hate us.
Well, sort this out for me. Torture. Do you think waterboarding is torture?
I think that waterboarding is unacceptable. It is not technically legally torture.
All right. And this was done in this.
Yes.
Okay. It's a violation of the Geneva Convention.
The Geneva Convention doesn't apply. The Geneva Convention only applies to uniform combatants.
All right. If these were uniform combatants,
you couldn't do it.
Okay. All right. Couldn't do it. Did we? You're a history guy. Did we prosecute other countries, other nationals after World War II in connection with interrogation techniques remotely similar to this?
No.
Okay.
And that's the point. I mean, we have 3 people who were very high up to whom we applied extraordinary measures. All 3 of them are terrorists. Terrorists do not come under international law by definition. Pirates don't come under international law. And it's grotesque that we're now saying about people who routinely were willing to chop people's heads off on videotape. Oh, let's make sure that we treat them as though they were an ACLU client.
All right. Here's my thing is that if it works or whether it doesn't work is hugely significant, right? If waterboarding does not work, I take it you're not in favor of it. If it doesn't work.
Look, if the President of the United States is faced with a threat so grave that he believes every measure should be used, I would not take away from the President of the United States a range of measures I find despicable.
How does this play out for President Obama and for Speaker Pelosi?
I think Speaker Pelosi is in enormous trouble. I think that lying to the country on national security matters and lying to the House is a very, very dangerous thing to have done.
If she did that, and that's why we need that's why we need all the surrounding documents.
I have no question she did it.
Okay.
I mean, look, her 2 defenses are, I was too stupid to know what they were telling me, or I lied. I mean, those are her 2 defenses.
Not great defenses, I understand that.
Yeah, again, I mean, you've defended people who had worse cases, but I think it also just diminishes her authority radically. I mean, it makes her look like somebody who is a very significant liability.
So what does she do from here?
Oh, I'm sure she's furious. I'm sure she's trying to figure out desperately some strategy for survival.
And what is that?
I don't know. I mean, I think my guess is that they have a legal team working all weekend to try to come up with a new defense, which they need to release Monday. But I think she has an enormous problem.
Well, if they don't release the documents...
And by the way, the reason she has an enormous problem is that she, in her own press conference, she took it from this particular event on this day, and she made an allegation which lied about the entire intelligence community, which now means...